5:34 in the morning, Strongsville, Ohio, July 31st, 2022. A security camera catches a white Toyota Camry turning slowly, almost carefully, onto a quiet industrial street. Nothing about it looks wrong. 9 seconds later, a second camera catches the same car at the far end of that street. It is doing over 100 miles an hour. Ahead, the road ends. A T-junction, a slight dogleg, and then a brick building. The car does not slow. It does not turn away. It does not brake. It threads the dogleg, a deliberate steer, left, then right, and drives straight into the corner of the wall at full speed. The impact splits the car in two. Inside are 3 teenagers. The driver survives, with almost every bone broken. The 2 passengers do not. One of them is her boyfriend of 4 years. A year later, a judge will look at this footage and call it something other than an accident. She will call it murder. And the girl behind the wheel will say, to this day, that she remembers none of it. To understand what happened on that road, you have to meet the 3 people in the car. The driver was 17 years old. She was a social media influencer, a real one, with a following large enough that companies sent her free product to post. Her life, as presented online, was bright, curated, aspirational. Her boyfriend was 20. He loved music, basketball, and the stock market. They had been together for 4 years. She was 13 when it started. He was 16. The third teenager in the back seat was 19. He had just graduated high school. He coached kids swimming. He had applied to barber college and was due to start that autumn. By every account, he was in that car for one reason. He was a good friend, along for the night. That is the surface. Underneath it, the relationship between the driver and her boyfriend was, in the words of one magazine, tumultuous, and that word is doing a lot of work. In the months before the crash, the relationship left a trail, and almost all of it pointed in one direction. There were text messages. In one, she wrote that she wanted to kill someone. He, at various points, alleged she had threatened to stab him. Each accused the other of blackmail. His mother had raised abuse concerns months earlier. 2 weeks before the crash, his mother was worried enough about the way the girl was driving that she sent a family friend to go pick her son up. That friend later described what they walked into. They said they heard the girl screaming, "I'm going to wreck this car right now," and saw her hitting her boyfriend. "I'm going to wreck this car right now." 2 weeks before she wrecked the car. None of this, on its own, is a crime. Toxic relationships are not rare, and most of them do not end in a brick wall. But this one did, and once it did, every one of those warnings stopped looking like noise and started looking like a pattern. The last night began, like a lot of teenage nights, with a party. Around 10:15 on the evening of July 30th, the 3 of them went to a graduation party. Later, near 11, they moved to a friend's house. They listened to music. They smoked. At 5:30 in the morning, the 3 of them left together and got into the Camry. She was driving. Her boyfriend was in the front passenger seat. Their friend was in the back. 4 minutes later, the car was in pieces against the Plidco building, and 2 of them were gone. The first responders did not arrive for 45 minutes. It was a deserted industrial road at dawn, and there was no one around to call it in. When they did arrive, one officer would later say it was the worst crash he had ever seen. The car had split in 2. The 2 passengers were pronounced dead at the scene. The driver was alive, barely. Multiple fractures. She was airlifted to hospital and needed multiple surgeries. And at that point, a teenage girl, catastrophically injured, her boyfriend and friend dead. This looked like every parent's worst nightmare. A tragic, horrific accident. That is what the police assumed too, at first. The investigation began where these investigations always begin, with the car. If a car does something inexplicable, the first questions are mechanical. Did the accelerator stick? Did the brakes fail? Was the steering compromised? An expert examined the vehicle. Its conclusion was blunt. The car had been in perfect working condition. Then investigators pulled the data. Modern cars carry an event data recorder, a black box that logs the final seconds before a crash. Speed, throttle, braking. It does not have opinions. It only records. And what it recorded was this. In the seconds before impact, the accelerator was pressed all the way down, to its full extent. The brake was never touched. Not a tap, not a flinch. All the way to the wall, foot flat on the gas. There was one more detail, the one that turned a tragedy into a case. That road did not run straight into the building. There was a slight dogleg near the end, a small kink in the road. To hit the corner of that building at that speed, the car couldn't simply have been aimed and released. Someone had to steer through the kink. Left, then right. A conscious correction, at 100 miles an hour, in the final seconds. A car with a jammed pedal and an unconscious driver does not thread a dogleg. It drifts. It spins. It leaves the road. This car navigated. Then the police found the thing that changed the entire shape of the case. They pulled the car's GPS history. 3 days before the crash, the Camry had been to that exact spot, that same dead-end industrial road, ending at that same building. The prosecution's theory hardened into something specific and chilling. They argued this was not an accident and not a sudden impulse. They argued it was planned, that she had scouted the location, that she chose 5:30 in the morning because the streets would be empty, that the relationship was ending, that he had threatened another breakup, and that she decided if it was ending, it would end on her terms. A murder, and, given that she was in the car with her foot on the gas, an attempted suicide alongside it. In November 2022, after she was discharged from hospital, she was arrested. She faced 17 charges. But there is a second version of this story, and a documentary that only tells you the first one is lying to you by omission. Because here is what the prosecution did not have. They had no confession. She never admitted to any of it. They had no eyewitness to intent. No one who could say what was in her mind in those 4 minutes. And they had a defendant who said, from the beginning, that she had no memory of the crash at all, that she had blacked out. Her lawyer pointed to a real medical condition, POTS, a disorder of blood circulation that can, in some cases, cause a person to briefly lose consciousness. In that version, the GPS ping 3 days earlier is just a road they'd driven before. The full throttle, no brakes data is not murder, but a body that had already switched off. And the dogleg steer is the last reflex of someone slumped at the wheel. The prosecution's case was powerful, but it was also entirely circumstantial. Every single piece of it was an inference. Damning inferences, stacked high, but inferences. And there was one more unusual feature of this trial. She did not face a jury. She chose a bench trial, which meant her guilt or innocence would be decided, not by 12 ordinary people, but by one person, a single judge. The judge was not persuaded by the blackout. Prosecutors had also shown the court how the girl behaved after the crash. Videos she posted from her hospital bed and wheelchair, some joking, one in which she said she was the kind of girl who could do a lot of drugs and not die. Photographs from that Halloween, her and her friends in corpse-like face paint, which the victims' families found unbearable. To the prosecution, this was a portrait of someone without remorse. In August 2023, the judge delivered her verdict. She found that the crash was intentional and premeditated. She called the driver, in a phrase that became the headline, "Hell on wheels." Guilty, 4 counts of murder, multiple other felonies. She was sentenced to life in prison, eligible for parole after 15 years. She has appealed 3 times. Every appeal has failed. The most recent ones rejected not on the facts, but because they were filed too late. In 2026, the Ohio Supreme Court declined to look at the case at all. So what actually happened on that road at 5:30 in the morning? A court has answered that question. Legally, it is settled. She is a convicted murderer, and the appeals are exhausted. But a documentary can sit in a place a courtroom cannot. Because the honest truth is that 2 stories fit the same evidence. In one, a jealous, volatile teenager who had screamed that she would wreck the car did exactly that, scouted the spot, waited for the quiet hour, and drove the boy who was leaving her and his innocent friend into a wall. In the other, a gravely ill young woman blacked out at the wheel and survived to be blamed for a horror she cannot even remember, convicted on a chain of inferences by one judge with no confession and no memory to contradict. The event data recorder can tell us the accelerator was flat to the floor. It cannot tell us whether the foot on it was awake. That is the space where this case lives, and why it refuses to close. 2 boys are dead. Their families are certain. A judge was certain. And the only person who was actually in that driver's seat says she wasn't there, not in the way that counts. She may be lying. She may be the most chilling kind of killer, the kind who plans. Or she may be telling the truth and simply have no idea whether she is. She says she doesn't remember. And the terrible thing is, that might be the one part of her story that everyone, on both sides, has no choice but to believe.